Maybe.
Hey, are we?
It's
Does
loading.
this work?
It says loading, but
Are
the
we?
We
Are
should
chat the
we?
begin
Are
it.
chat
we
popped up
able?
and it says starting.
Are we able to broadcast on Twitch? We haven't been banned.
Yeah,
Hold on.
and we are
This
live.
was legal.
Okay,
This was okay.
okay, we are
Okay.
live. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to our second uh Dungeon Master discussion. Originally, it was supposed to be me and Joel for the first one, but then COVID happened and kind of threw a wrench into my plans. And I just threw like an impromptu one together last Friday. So sorry you
With
didn't get to
me.
be a part of the first one, Joel.
It's cool. I'll give you my private attention some other time.
uh, yeah, I know. So tonight's discussion, before we get too off topic, because I do want to catch up with you guys because we haven't seen each other since I've been quarantining myself because of COVID. But anyways, tonight I want to talk about a little bit of world building tips. I know, as you guys know, you're playing in the world that I've created. Aiden's created his whole world, and I know that I've talked to each of you about you guys have ideas for different worlds that you either have started building or you've like talked about wanting to build. I know Alex and you and I had a conversation about that. Uh,
Yeah.
so I guess to start off, we'll just kind of bounce questions off each other and give our own little opinions. Uh, so I guess whichever you guys want to go first, what is your initial spark of an idea for what makes you want to create your world? Is it more like the group of people you play with, or is it you see something or you think of an idea and you're like, hey, I want to build a world around that and make it something more. So let's just dive a little bit more into what sparks the initial inspiration, I guess, of what makes you start wanting to build a world.
For me, it's generally a theme that doesn't exist yet, at least inside standard modules. It can be something like a geographical location that doesn't exist yet, something where like mushrooms are the size of mountains, or something that's underwater that isn't been written yet exactly for the current rules. And so then I create a zone for that, and then tie it in somewhere.
Kind of build around it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I did that with a couple different things. Alex, Aiden, you guys have any input here?
I mean, a lot of what I do is just, it's D&D, so I just take stuff that I see from different media, TV shows, movies, books.
Right.
That is like, man, that looks cool. I would love to make something similar to that and like relive it in the context of D&D with my friends.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take stuff from other games I've seen played, That's a lot of what I do. I just like putting a lot of fun things in the world and interesting concepts.
Sure.
Sure. I mean, you see lots of cool stuff on like TV and movies all the time. That it's like, man, that would be kind of cool.
Right. Yeah. I had some similar experiences. I had this thing for a while. Whenever I would hit a roadblock, I would just set everything I'm doing down, and I'd go start watching. Because I have like a list of animes that I need to catch up on and watch, and then I would just start watching them. And there's a lot of them that are very fantasy based, and I'd be like reading through it, and then I just have to like pause it and be like, okay, I'm ready to start typing again because something in there sparked that inspiration or got me through that writer's block where I could start filling in some different holes, or they maybe gave me an idea of where something would kind of work well with what I was trying to go for. Aiden, what about you?
It's double-edged, and I was lucky. I think I follow in the footsteps of somebody who inspired me a lot, both as a DM and just as my whole life. But when it comes to world building, I knew there was a story that I wanted to tell, which was about nations, political intrigue, and then above it all, they ignoring what is like a repeating cycle.
Right.
And I can agree with you on one thing, Alex. And you may, if you've watched the last roundtable, you might hear me repeat myself a few times. Take your inspirations anywhere, any media you can get, wear them on your sleeve. Don't be afraid to do it. No story is original. But I was also lucky enough not only to follow in the footsteps of somebody that inspired me a lot, but I was also extremely lucky in the sense that I knew all of my players outside of the game before I created the world. And I know what kind of stories they're prone to interact with and be invested in. So it was kind of, and I talk about this whenever we talk about DMing, is I have a story that I want to tell, but I also want to do justice to each of the characters and tell a story of each of the characters. So like I was both creating this world and getting character pitches just a couple months after I started to like really grind the gears on creation. And it was a good lesson. and it was also informative to running the game in the future and beyond, of changing an element of my world because I understood that one of my players had something they were trying to hit as far as like thematic notes, and I could just change it on the fly, and nobody notices except for me that it's been changed.
Right, and that's kind of one of the tools as a DM can use. And you and I talked about this last time about how like when you present your map to your players and you put it through the eyes of someone in the world who made it, it
Yeah.
gives you the opportunity to change your world while the game is still ongoing, because maybe that person didn't actually see the world and how it's changing, or how it couldn't have seen that, might not have seen that certain area of the world since it's changed. So it's
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
I
Joel,
really like that idea.
to fill you in, Joel Alex, I created a map, and I only gave them a segment of it where they start, and it's from the view of one of the cartographers in the world. So it's somebody who was in that world that created that map. I have a different version that is for me, like the DM's map, and
Yeah.
no, it's not as grandiose as it sounds. It's got notes all over it and garbage all over it, but it's very nice to kind of not only did I only give them what they needed at the start, because I kind of created this larger world that I threw out names and gave them places, and there's intrigue of a larger world out there, and I do have a map for it, but I only gave them that concentrated bit. And Matt and I have talked a lot. That is, in my opinion, one of the best tools you can leverage, because that gives you the flexibility to change things as time goes on.
Yep.
Yeah.
I definitely agree there. So the next thing I want to go ahead and talk about, and I'm wondering if there's going to be a divide here, or if everyone's going to have the same consensus. And it comes.
Should you write these down this time?
No, I'm running off my head.
Okay.
So this next one,
Cool.
and then it works, ties in, because we were just talking about maps, and it is when you go to draw out your map, or to describe your world, do you guys tend to stick to the more hyper realism of geography, or do you tend to just kind of go with the flow of how you think it should look?
You guys go first.
I mean, I can take it. I personally am of the opinion that go with whatever you think is cool.
Right.
If you want a river that somehow flows up a mountain, or like whatever, it's a
Yeah.
fantasy.
No, you're right.
If you want to make it high magic and all these different things happening, like
Hmm.
we don't play D&D because it's hyper realistic, or I don't at least. So that's my opinion. I mean, have fun. That's why we play, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
It is.
Exactly. Joel, Aiden, you guys have anything you want to tie in here, and then I'll give my opinion.
I'm of the same way. I think that's how some of the best creation comes about, is by not sticking to the rules.
Hmm.
Creating something that couldn't exist in reality and giving it a basis of reality and why it exists within your world, but
Right.
it's still.
And it also spurs a little bit of like the creative juices whenever you do that, because then you have to come up with a reason for why it does that most of the time. Okay, why does this river run uphill? Is there some magical effect about it, or is it, is gravity in this one certain area reversed for some reason? And you can, yeah, and you can give you come up with some really cool ideas and different reasons for why stuff like that happens. It's your turn.
I mean, I can definitely say hands down, you as a DM, the most important thing you got to do is read the room. Who are you running a game for?
Sure.
I have players who I know if I created this crazy fantasy land that they wouldn't care. If it was all floating islands, they wouldn't mind. I have players amongst that group who I know want to kind of walk into not an idyllic RPG world like they would see in a film or game or something like that, but somewhere that they can feel has this reasoning to it. So a lot of my choices whenever I build the world is, yes, I do have those fantastic upflowing rivers and stuff. They're rare, but they do exist.
Mhm.
I think one of the strengths is kind of when you find. First off, by the way, spoiler for my world, I generated a random continent, and I was like, that looks nice, sure. And I just started going on it, and I drew some mountains, and then I drew, well, if there's mountains, there's got to be rivers, and if there's rivers, they got to bend. So now I have to figure out elevation of the world, and then that, of course, begets towns kind of in those nooks where the rivers run by a nice area. But also, one thing that I wanted to keep, and one thing, if I've learned any lesson as a DM, sacrifice nothing, not even your world, for the sake of story.
Right.
Story is above everything else. Tell the story that you want to tell, and tell it for your players, if that's the kind of game you're planning to run for your players, because I can only speak from my perspective.
Right.
If you're running it for the characters that they've created, sacrifice nothing. Not your world, not the lore, none of it. Your characters come first.
Uh,
But yeah, I kind of go with I kind of learned a lot of like topography and how mountains and rivers and crap are formed, and
sure.
it's not fun, but it does make the world a bit more believable
Sure.
in a way.
I probably, because I know how much in depth you went for yours. I definitely did not go as in depth when just doing all the studying whenever I created the world you guys are currently playing in. But I did try to stick to a little bit of some sort of realism, but also the sense of high fantasy. Like there's small minute details that I don't think anyone's really noticed. Like all of the mountains in Tilstaria run from left to right, except for one range. And why is that one range the only one that runs north to south? And it's just small.
Keebler elves.
What was that?
Keebler elves. It's the answer to everything.
Yeah, exactly. But there's just small things like that where like all the rivers and things have like they have certain bends except for like one that looks a little different than all the others, or there's just small little minute details like that where it's like I was going through it and I was like, I really don't want to go the hyper realism because it's a high fantasy world. So I want there to be those magic elements that affect the world and how they change everything. But I don't want them to be so obvious that everyone just sees them right at first glance. I want it to be like someone sits down, looks at it whenever, and they're not looking for it, and they're looking for something else, and they're just like, hey, why is that different than everything else around it? What the hell's going on here? Just something that kind of grabs their attention. And that's kind of my feeling. I like to have a good mix between having it to where you could probably find it somewhere in the world, and also a mix between like, yeah, that doesn't exist anywhere, and that's really cool.
I kind of do want to add on to that if I could.
Yeah.
First off, if you ever like browsed enough pictures of the Earth, like the planet we live on,
right,
it gets wacky. Like there are actually real pictures of actual geography that blows my mind. I'm like, I can't even picture that exists. But I'm a humble boy growing up in the Midwest, so what do I know? But there is like, I do talk about putting your basis in reality, or having like a natural order to the way that rivers and everything flows.
Sure.
But I do think it's very important, for the sake of the game and for the sake of the different cultures and environments you may want to tell in, to have distinct geographical areas.
Like
so
different biomes.
one biome looks entirely different from another, and no, I have ones in my world, and no, they do not make sense. Like when you really go 50,000 foot view, I'm gonna try to sell it as reality, but
right.
there is those elements where like, yeah, this is a wasteland and this is a desert and there's not much life here, and no, it really shouldn't be this way if you look at the map properly. But
right.
That's what I wanted for the sake of the culture and the environment and the country that I wanted to tell within it.
And there's always going to be those certain people that point out stuff like that and they don't like it, but you can't really ever let that get to you. It is your world at the end of the day.
That's why I kind of led with make it realism, but don't sacrifice it for the sake of story.
Right.
Because or don't sabotage story for the sake of your world. I guess I should probably say that's the better inverse of that idiom that I'm trying to put out here.
So one thing I want to kind of wrap back around to something I had just mentioned was writer's block. When you guys start writing cities, start writing countries, or start writing or even making a map, and you come to almost like a block in the road and you don't know where you want to go, what's if you have one, what is your method of maybe trying to get around that? I gave one of mine, just sitting down and maybe watching some other fantasy stuff to kind of keep my mind in the same mindset of I want to think about fantasy stuff right now but I also don't want to be thinking about my world. I want to take my mind off that, relax a little bit, and then maybe as I'm kind of just sitting there, something will dawn on me.
Wikipedia.
Hey, Wikipedia can definitely be a strong source.
Like, say you're wanting to build like a geographical location about giant ass mushrooms. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, the first thing that comes to my mind is like Morrowind. So like Wiki Morrowind, and then just kind of like dig down in, and eventually like end up watching like a YouTube video about like some 1960s novel
Yep.
You know, it got published in some paper for 2 weeks, and you're
Sure.
like,
And you're just like,
that guy was wacky, but he was onto something.
See, when I think of giant mushrooms, I think of Zangarmarsh from WoW.
I'm telling you, man, you just find that little inspiration. You just,
Yep.
boink, like right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
I would say a lot of times I just like if I'm real stuck, I'll like write down what I was thinking about
Sure.
and just stop for a while. Like I'm not on a time limit.
Put
really.
it down and walk away from it.
Yeah, I'll just say, all right, I'll come back whenever I have inspiration. So I just generally work when I'm like, oh, cool, that sounds neat.
Yeah.
Put a note on my phone and write it down so I remember to actually include it later.
Yeah.
I'm also
Definitely
pretty
always
lax.
definitely always have a place to write down your ideas. That's
Oh,
one thing I
yeah.
can't stress enough. Side note, These Fists says, have you ever just not thought about it until in the moment and let the player's imagination decide?
You would all be liars if you said no to this.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have everything 100% planned
Yeah.
the entire time.
I'm sure I have, but I can't think of any specific moment of when I've done that. But yeah, I definitely can say I probably have done that. And it can get kind of wacky doing it that way, because your
Yeah.
players will sometimes throw you a curveball that you had no idea or did not see coming.
One of my favorite sessions that I've ever run, and I should probably preface this and say that I don't know if this is normal, but I'm a very nervous DM. Every time before I start a session, no matter how planned or unplanned I am, the nerves set in, and I am afraid of, as I do for the format of my game, I'm afraid of being on camera. I'm afraid of screwing it up and disappointing my friends. One of my favorite sessions ever was a session that I literally had nothing beyond the recap
Sure.
written for, because I like to write out my recaps and I like to read them to the players so that I cover what I think are all the bases that kind of were touched on last session. That was it. That was literally it. And I had a stack of stat blocks 20 minutes before that I was frantically scrolling through, and I was like, this, I'll reskin it, it'll look like that, and maybe I have this idea. And then they were in the middle of a town, and I set them loose, and it was, I mean, I will never ask whether or not I'm a good DM. Go ask my players. They gave me a lot of good feedback. They said that was an amazing session, yada yada. I'm like, shit, okay. I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
But as someone who's extremely nervous and kind of answering these Fists' question, I'm beginning to learn a side. Again, I never thought I would be DMing, but here we are. I never thought I'd be creating a world or creating a map, but here we are. I never thought I'd be trying to tell a grandiose, or what I perceive as a grandiose story, but here we are. And I never thought that I would be improvising an entire session, because I am the most nervous cat when it comes to unpreparedness. But there I was. I don't know.
I've been in that same boat, and my not that I had to improv a session, but the nervousness. That's why, and I'm sure you guys have noticed before every session, you'll see me like almost either down it or be sipping on a beer as we go into the session. Just that. And that sounds really alcoholic. Maybe I should go call AA after this, but but just that little bit of liquid courage really helps me get into the mindset and kind of cool the nerves and just be like, okay, yeah, we're just here to play a game. There's nothing to be nervous about. And that's
well, the environment requires just as much depth as your players want to explore.
right.
So that kind of helps when you know your
Yeah.
players, the level of depth you need to do.
The one thing that kind of I don't really get nervous about anymore is I knew going into this, especially with you guys and the group that we play with, all the different right turns you guys could make when I'm pointing you to the left. So I tried to have as much as possible prepared everywhere. So I have not run into a place yet where I had not had everything prepared, but I'm sure it's gonna come at some point.
Yeah, I can say, if I may, running for the players that I run, I did not think we'd be where we are in the campaign. I was actually originally intending a different direction, but it kind of naturally progressed. And it's funny because I was getting feedback from one of my players a while back, and they said something to the effect of like, "Oh man, it's really great, this story you've planned out." I was like, I did that. Yeah. And it's like, I wasn't planning on doing any of that, but you guys weren't even going to be in this town. But it just seemed right. And, I think to kind of lean back to one of our previous questions, is like what goes into building a town. I always want to try to find and when I talk to my players after my campaign, I'm sure there will be like, did this person always exist? And the answer is no.
Yeah, yeah.
I always create some sort of trustworthy ish mentor character that they can latch onto within a town. Everybody else seems fishy, but there's one person who seems like their head's on straight, and you may be able to listen to them. Maybe.
Sure.
I think that's really important.
Joel, Alex, do you guys have anything else? Oh. All right. These Fists says has a question for us. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're good. I do think kind of what we've talked about here is why it's almost, I guess, easier to run a world you built yourself or even someone else built
Yeah.
over some module.
God, I think
Like,
it
you never
might
know what your
be.
players are gonna do. I always feel like I'm like when you're running a module, you kind of have to make it start here, end here, and if the module wants you to go this way, you kind of go this way.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But when you're in your homebrew world, if you're here, you wanted to end here, you can go over here and never end up here. You can come back this way if you want to.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. And you can always move stuff around to make them end up where you want them to if you need to, because
Yeah.
they don't know the difference. You know, they don't have a module they can go read to find out if you were just bullshitting the whole time.
Yeah, that's the problem. If I ran a module, I feel like I would bullshit those kind of details to make I would never for a single second, my best effort would be to not make it seem like hang on, let me check the module, let me see what it says.
Yep. Yep.
I would, if it went off the rails, I'd take it straight off the rails.
Mhm.
I don't care, because having played in a couple modules, sorry, I'm gonna share a player experience real quick.
You're good.
Sometimes that DM pauses, and credit to him, he's running a module that he's not familiar with. But sometimes the DM pauses, and I'm like, oh, he's got to see what's up next. I don't blame him. I mean, if that's the way, that all depends on a specific DM style. Is what kind of DM style do you want to have?
Mhm.
My hoped goal is to never break my player's immersion.
Yep.
If I can help it.
So these Fists guy in our chat has a question for us. Says, do you all write out your NPCs' dialogues in depth, or do you just improv it on the spot, or do you have something that's kind of in between? For me, I don't write out any of my NPCs' dialogue at all. I improv it all, but I'll have like bullet points of what I know they want to talk about, or bullet points of stuff that they know about. So I kind of know where I want to run the dialogue. So I guess I would say that's in between for me. But I try to improv it on the spot and kind of get a feel for the room, and I'll maybe have like a little blip that says what kind of personality they have.
I know for me at least, I'd say I maybe have a half a sheet of notes when I go to run a session most of the time. Maybe.
Right.
About 90% of what I do in a session is just run from what's in my head. If they run into, I know I've got a list of names that they can run into, just like randomly generated names and places.
God, have a random generated name list.
Yeah.
So do I.
And so it's
It's
like, okay, cool. You guys ran into this person who's insert gender and race here,
Mhm.
and I want them to know this, and this is how I'll do the conversation. And I think part of it's just because I'm a player a lot of times too, so I'm pretty comfortable just saying, sure, I'll improv it and we'll go from there. Like,
Right.
it's my game, it's our game.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I have all my NPCs created ahead of time, and if you don't run into Jenny the florist, you'll run into Jenny the tailor. Their personality, the bullet points of what their goals are. So if they're a thief, if they're worried about their family life, that sort of thing, to kind of encourage their conversation habits. But if I have an NPC written, chances are you'll run into it somewhere, even if it's not in the town I intended. George Forgeman.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not letting these ideas go to waste.
oh yeah, always reuse parts of Buffalo any way you can.
Oh
If you
man.
create an NPC, you're running into it somewhere.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And
It depends. It actually depends, and the funny part is that it depends because I think about what my players are capable of. When it comes to enemy dialogue, it's often actually written out. And it actually has a translation right next to it, just in case one of my players casts like comprehend languages or something, like just immediately. I don't know how this stuff works, if they've cast tongues or whatever. Also because I want my villains, my bad guys, to have like actual motivations and proper taunts, which is funny. And I should say this for posterity's sake. One of my players recognized a word that wasn't in the language. It was mixed up as part of the original language that none of the players understood. And I checked which languages my players understand. This is true as well of the first session. Which is famous for using Goblinoid, and nobody understood Goblin. This happened in the most recent session as well. I have written out little bits beyond that. I like to write out my villain dialogue, I guess, because whatever. So I come up with literally gobbly-gock words that sound cool, and I say, none of you understand this. But I read it from a paper because, somebody points somewhere or does something. When it comes to other NPCs that are socially interacting, speaking in a language you don't understand, generally it's off the cuff because I wasn't expecting my players to encounter it, but I think it's a cool moment to throw in at the moment. Or it's the kind of thing where they're going to ask generally, what's the read here? And I can say, sounds frustrated, sounds whatever. Like, you don't understand Elvish, but you've been around enough elves speaking Elvish that you kind of understand there's a little bit of... And you can, I kind of draw that back to real life English. When I'm around non-English speakers,
Sure.
you can still... Humans are readable, just like Insight, as a skill. They have their tones, they have their inflections, they have their tells as far as body language goes. Yeah, no. I don't usually write NPC dialogue in depth. Sometimes I've been caught a couple times with NPCs and a player asking them a very important question. That then I wish on that singular moment I had written, because I knew the question was coming, but I wish I had written down dialogue. But instead, I only have an idea up here. And so I got to kind of off the cuff it, and it maybe, I mean, again, ask my players, not me, but I feel like it falls flat. So, but that's my own self-criticism. I have no feedback saying that person did not give me good dialogue. So who knows?
I feel like someone that would have to be pretty cynical to come at a DM and tell them that their NPC did not give them good dialogue.
But what I meant was like that they were confusing or whatever.
Yeah, I understand.
That they were not clear on their point, which I think I'm guilty of many times, but that's a self-criticism. So I'm not sure. Yeah. I would have to ask my players.
None of you guys passed out the survey afterwards. It's like, out of 1 to 5 stars, how would you rate this?
No, fuck that. although I do say soliciting feedback from your players is a thing that you first off have to go out and do, but second off is so valuable.
And
so
certain someone in this call didn't respond to me.
You sure didn't.
Oh.
Yeah.
I saw that earlier today.
Huh?
Uh-oh.
I saw that earlier today. I meant to respond.
Yeah, I sent out the same text to everyone, just soliciting feedback from the session so far, and if there's anything they think I should improve upon. And chat, if you guys, like I've said before, if you guys have anything you think I can improve upon, please tell me, because I want this to be first and foremost a better game for you guys, those that are here in the call and those that play in the game with us. But I mean, in the end of the day, I want it to be a better show all around. But anyways, back to our topic. Joel, Alex, Aiden, one of you guys want to take the reins for a second and talk a little bit about world building? Anything that comes to mind?
I had something. How do you guys handle your geographical layout for things? Do you just piece it together where you think it fits? Like, what do you start designing first? Do you build the geographical
this
location?
Is a good question.
And the culture? Do you decide the culture then the geographical locations to fit your cultural needs?
I'll go first.
This
if you
is
don't
a
mind,
very
Aiden.
good question. No, go ahead.
So for me personally, I build the geographical world, and then I look at the different cultures and different things that I want, and I'm like, okay, where do those best fit within my geography? And then I fix them in somewhere, and then maybe after that I go back and change some of it to kind of, if maybe something didn't fit too well, like, maybe these Yuan Ti need a better islander feel or something, different, and I didn't really have that anywhere that fit really well, so I wanted to change it. Or you know, for instance, I have I wanted to put I think it's the forest gnomes, the ones that are like natural illusionists or whatever.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I wanted
I
to fit
think.
them. I wanted to fit them into my world somewhere, but I didn't want it to just be where there's a giant forest. So like I had to look and find a specific place where, you know, it would make sense for them to be, without it changing without having to change the geography of where they are.
Alex, you got anything?
I mean, I think it's pretty clear to anyone watching. I'm probably the most relaxed and off the cuff out of all of us. But
But hey, there might be some people that are like that.
There is merit in that, by the way.
Yeah.
Do not be ashamed.
Yeah.
You know, if you got.
it's what I enjoy, so why not?
Yeah, no, there's merit in that, and there will be players looking for every type of game.
Yeah.
Uh,
I like thinking about what I want the world to look like as a whole, I guess, culturally. You know, do you want it to be very similar in a lot of places? Do you want it to be a world full of conflict with a bunch of different ideologies and nations that are around? And then from there, I'll go, okay, cool. What's the standard for that?
Right.
And we'll just follow the standard. But then, you know, maybe you put an empire on a string of islands or something, like a large cluster of islands or things like that. Don't quite make sense, but they've somehow found a way to do it. And then
Right.
you can spend your time explaining why that's the way it is.
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, it's funny, Matt. I should probably admit, you and I think, are directly opposite.
Oh, yeah?
And the reason why I say that is because the way that I went about my campaign was way before I started building either world. I sent a campaign campaign pitch to my players. Do they want to be in a Starfinder, sci-fi? And you've heard me say this. Sorry, I'm
Yeah, you're
repeating
good.
for the sake of the audience and for the sake of Alex and Joel here. Do they want to be in a sci-fi space romp, or do they want to be in D&D? And my players chose D&D out of familiarity, and I don't blame them, because the other one would have been way harder. There's not the online tools that there is for D&D.
Sure.
But I sent basically, here's the high level stuff, here's the conflict of the world, the thing that most people are ignoring, the cycle, like I talked about earlier. And then here's the nations or confederacies or whatever, you know, whether it be space or whether it be D&D, you use a nation or a confederacy of systems or whatever. And then finally, once they picked, I started building a world. So I had an idea of like what each of the cultures of the main players that I was originally intending anyway, and I've built a larger world since because I figured out my players wanted more.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to ruin one element, so I created a new one per se. Thanks for the gifted subs, although I'm sure you were going to get around to it.
I was waiting for you to stop so I could get to it.
So it kind of became this whole thing where I started creating this world that overall just enraptured everything that my players wanted and kind of the notes that I wanted to hit. But when I had the original idea, you know, I said I started from a general, like I randomly generated a continent, but then I was like, this continent needs to be split into three in order to provide the intrigue that I need.
Sure.
And so I started cutting away at it using mountains and ridges and valleys and everything else to show not only a natural border for each country, but also kind of the ability to tweak things as I go, but also have different biomes. I don't know. Maybe I'm ranting.
No, you're good.
It's fine.
Uh,
We have a couple questions I think we can catch up on.
First off, these fists, huge shout out there. The 2 gifted subs, we really appreciate that. All the support that you guys give us is super appreciated. All that support you guys give us from subs, bits, donations, everything goes back into the stream.
Straight back.
I've said it a couple times here, but you know we're looking to upgrade our audio quality and our video quality, and you know we're hoping to have it done as soon as possible. So I mean, you know, the more you guys support us, the faster we'll get it, and the faster we'll have that higher quality content for you. So we really appreciate it. That's awesome. But these fists also had a question right before that, and he said, in a similar vein, if you are building an encounter, how much time do you spend on your? I assume you meant time, but how much time do you spend on your terrain, and where and how are your enemies grouped? For me, and I'm sure that those of you that have watched noticed, I spend an absurd amount of time on my battle maps. I have everything meticulously placed in a certain way, and I always review my notes on how that area is laid out in my notes for me, like all of my campaign notes for whenever I was writing the world. And I always review that, and I'm like, okay, how do I describe it and imagine it whenever I originally first wrote it, and now how do I how do I build this battle map around it? Where's my mug? We will be getting them shipped out soon. But we just have to have everyone finish signing them.
Everybody has to sign them. That
Yeah,
is a requirement.
you guys said you wanted them signed, or else I would have had them out already. So that is why there's been a delay. So I do apologize for that.
And I bought a special Sharpie to sign them.
Yeah.
So you're welcome.
Okay. That's
Well,
curious about-
What'd you say, Joel? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm talking to myself to make sure I don't fall.
Oh,
One,
okay.
I'm sitting in the broken chair right now, so if I move,
Oh,
I'll
okay.
probably fall.
I wasn't sure if it was me, and I was curious before I leaned back, but I risked it.
Gotcha.
So this is
okay.
dangerous. Okay. I should keep a close eye on the top right pane to see
Yeah.
something funny.
Here.
But to
Gotcha.
finish up, I always decide how to group my enemies on what is their mindset and how they're coming at the group. Are they a pack mentality? Do they want to stay together? Are they kind of loners? Or do they want to go off on their own? Are they kind of cocky? Do they think they can just take them all themselves and they're going to charge in? And this one guy's going to charge in by himself, while the rest are more strategic and they kind of stay back. For instance, when you guys fought the Wraiths, the two guys with the swords charged in. You know, they're close combat, while the two guys with crossbows, even though you guys charged them, they tried to keep their distance and shoot at the people from afar, because that's where
Yeah.
they knew their strengths lied.
Hmm.
But when I originally grouped them, I grouped them because of you saw, if you guys remember, two archers came in from the south, two infantry came in from the west, and a spellcaster came in from the east. So what they did is they just kind of encircled you guys and used a little bit of strategy, even though they aren't inherently that smart. But they have enough knowledge to be like, okay, if we encircle them and completely surround them, we have a higher chance of winning here. And that's kind of how I go about for grouping my enemies. And I hope that's kind of what the answer you were looking for. Do you guys want to touch on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, Joel, Alex, go.
I mean, I know I personally run a lot of Theater of the Mind combat, which is different than you guys.
Mm.
Just because I like to run a lot of small encounters
Mhm.
to make it feel more real, I guess. Like, I know that's just the way I like to do it, because I know a lot of us, like, I want to test my character's strength to an extent. Like, an adventuring day is not just we go drink for 6 hours,
It's not.
dude, and then we go drink for 6 more hours till we go to bed. Although
Man.
that does good.
I'm here for it.
But I'll enjoy throwing in like skill challenges and things like that. So the specific grouping and
Joel
stuff
winked
like
at the
that.
camera. Sorry.
Grouping is less important.
I just noticed he winked at the camera. I turned red like a tomato. It's fine.
Oh man, we got some flirting between players now.
I'm in love. I'm in love.
I mean,
A
isn't that what it's expected?
a bard, it's all about.
Yeah, I was gonna say he has a bard.
Go figure.
I can't wait till I drop a dragon on the table, and Joel's like, I got this.
Yeah.
I mean, I could give some Tophen spoilers right now, but we'll hold on to it for
Yeah,
now.
we'll hold off.
Joel, you got something regarding encounter design, or?
Hey, Captain
So-
Crush, thanks for that sub.
I first, whenever I create encounters for like world building, I look at the highest IQ, like the highest intelligence and wisdom of the group, to see how formulaic they'd be in their battle strategy. I don't think about it too hard. That sounds like it's complicated. It's really not. I'm just like, does the highest thing in this have 4 intelligence? They're probably just running at it. But if it's like a wizard or something, they're gonna come at it, more strategic. They're not just gonna run out there and be like, fireball, oh, that didn't work, I'm about to get swarmed. Like,
Yeah. Is it a horde, a mob, or
yeah.
a military,
then
basically?
Usually when it's a planned encounter and it's not something that I haven't planned for necessarily, I'll think of the terrain to give my players a challenge. So if I have a wizard, I want to put it not just on the floor with them. I want to put it out of reach, or give it some
right.
escape mechanism to where, like, if they rush it, now it's over here and you're separated from your party
Yeah.
member, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
And then your players just hold person it and run up and kill it. It's fine.
yeah, it normally goes like that, but like, you never know.
It's fine. It's fine.
Like he's ran one, where we didn't have a lot of mobility, and it was walking on the ceiling, and we were just like, it was like,
What's my strength? How high can I jump?
yeah, I ended up what I ended up like flipping somebody off my shield or
Yeah,
something.
you guys ended up
and-
like full like.
Avengers doing the Avengers move.
Basically, it was just like we practiced. Yeah.
Yeah, so encounter design for me, if I had to like try to break something down, usually I start with what creature I want to run against my players, and I always try to be very careful about saying creature's turn rather than what it actually is, just because I've got a lot of players or a couple players in my group who are very experienced. If I say the creature's name,
They
I'm not
instantly know the
accusing them.
stats.
I will never accuse them of metagaming because I try not to metagame myself, but it's a thing that I'm learning is difficult to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
It's very hard to separate that membrane of knowledge versus character knowledge. I think that's the thing that every D&D player or DM as well could learn from, even if you play the game like I do. I both run and play it. So I like to think of the monsters first, and then encounter design is generally like what kind of. This sounds really abstract and really snooty. What kind of lesson do I want to teach my players? And at the beginning, it was a lesson in they can't just run at the enemies. They have to use cover, use terrain to their advantage, because I wanted to teach them my style, which is going to be there is always cover. There is almost always going to be some form of cover you can take. You can, because of the nature of the game that I run, knock over a table, go wild, tell me what you want to do, and we'll make it happen, even if it doesn't fit the game rules, if it's cool. So, like, bonus action kick over a table, sure, what do I care? It's a bonus action that takes you literally, like, kicking over a table when you're a well-fitted adventurer in armor, that takes literally one kick, and that takes less than 1 second to kick.
Unless
right?
your name's
So
Chris.
yes. Oh, shit. Or your name's Gardak. So that takes less than 1 second. And that's something that adds dynamicacy to the combat, where then somebody is utilizing cover. There's rules for it in 5e. I feel like they're underused. But also, like, terrain and using highs and lows. If I can build them into maps, like a high and a low point, then the archers and the slingers, the ranged people are automatically going to gravitate towards that. I found sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. But then I also think about the flip side of how are my players going to approach this situation. And sometimes I hit the mark, and sometimes I do not. And I'm talking abstractly about a series of Imgur galleries that I've had that are related to every session that I run. I take pictures of the maps and just explain my original encounter design, why I put things where I put them. It's usually some form of test, but also to make the combat more dynamic than I run at the guy and hit him. Because again, and you're going to hear me repeat this a lot, I'm not going to yuck your yum, but if you want to run D&D on a flat 2D grid, that's fine. But what I find it lends itself to a lot is people literally just standing there hitting each other until they're out of HP. I like to make things a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
So that's why I title my campaign the way that I do. That's why I let players get away with crazy and fun things to do. And I find that they're more prone to do those type of crazy fun things if I give them a map that is interesting and has different highs and lows that they can look at. Can I break off a rock and throw it at this guy? Sure. What's your strength? Like, roll in athletics. Okay, you're crazy. Now it's basically a catapult spell. Roll 3d8. Tell me what it is, because that's essentially what you're doing, right? I mean, I don't know. I got a lot of thoughts, but generally I start with monsters. Then I kind of think about how my players would approach it, and like I try to give my archers cover, my players archers cover, while also not underselling the monster or underselling my fighters that need to cross a gap and start hitting. It's worked. It's also failed, but
Yep.
I learn. Each time I run an encounter is a lesson, whether for me or the players.
Second question here from these fists on the same topic here. Do you ever run encounters that are in less optimal ways just to burn resources? Also, hold person is always a good strat. Yeah, I can agree there it is. But you ever run encounters in less optimal ways just to burn resources?
Yes.
I would say
That's
yes. Without. Yeah, I'm trying to think of an instance where I've done that, but I can't. Nothing's coming to mind right now. The answer is yes. I'm trying to think of a way to elaborate on that, but nothing's coming to mind.
I usually use it in the fight. Like that's what, a high-level fighter and an archer surrounded by kobolds is for. have the fodder rush them to burn resources and early healing while the other two are strategizing and taking cheap shots from far away.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Vader.
yes, just yes, and I'll generally say I've been guilty maybe once or twice. I try to run encounters that are relative to the story, but I have been guilty of throwing an encounter that I don't know if my players know are not relative to the story, but just to soak up time because I was not prepared.
Yeah.
And I only say that because I know some of my players are in the chat here,
Yeah.
which is thanks for showing up.
Yeah.
I've actually never done that. That's actually a good idea.
Well, the way I find it is most encounters will take at least an hour. At least an hour.
Especially with a big
And
group.
Yeah, for the most part.
and kind of once I get to that half hour, or kind of once I get to the halfway mark, the 2 hour mark, I'm like, well, I could just stop it at 3, or I could run this encounter and then continue for an hour. So then they get their 4 hours that everybody's kind of expecting in a strange way.
Talk my way out of anything. I've never thought of just being like, here's a totally 100% planned encounter you're gonna deal with for 45 minutes.
Right.
I don't know. Better do something. Roll initiative.
No, I don't ever like throw a straight random encounter that has absolutely no purpose.
So wait, you've never
But
walked
I will
into
throw
the
in.
tavern and there's not been a giant standing in front of the door?
No, no.
It's like the wall comes down and this ogre rolls through.
Yeah, because unfortunately, if a troll descends from the fucking side of the hill to attack the town, now I have to explain why it's been there for 45 years.
Through the wall and goes, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Vader, Vader says, what's the best way to determine what level you want to DM your campaign? Is it player experience? Could you elaborate on that a little bit more, Vader? Do you mean character level? We lost Aiden. He's back.
Is it character level or encounter?
No, we didn't.
Yeah, are you talking by encounter level, like the difficulty rating for creatures, or are you talking about character level?
Either way, I'd say the answer is yes.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
I kind of thought maybe he meant how do you determine what level your characters start at? That's just the way I interpreted that question. That might not be the right way. For me, it's not really player experience. I just like to start my players at level 2, almost no matter what. Unless I'm going for a very short campaign, I would go for later levels. But I really like to start at level 2, and you kind of get to see some better character development and maybe some more fun encounters on the early levels before they get anything too crazy.
Why level 2? Why not level 3 when they really have their class?
To be honest, I don't know, but
Joel's just salty because he wanted his swords barred earlier.
is that what it is?
Any campaign I run, I start at 3, and even if it's a
Sure.
module, I'm up. Because like I feel like 2 and lower, you're just a dude who can get crit and dropped immediately.
So I guess for this campaign, my reasoning behind, if I had to give a reason behind it, is I wanted it to feel like you guys were just people at the beginning, and then you kind of grew into adventurers as you guys got to know each other. Like for instance, I mean, if we look at my custom class, the Titan class that Alex is playing, he quite literally was nothing special. He was nothing more than a commoner until level 2 because of the way my class works. Which, is shitty for anyone playing that at level 1, but luckily we didn't have any combats for him at level 1. Why not level 1? So easy to TPK in 20 minutes in. Hey, I almost TPK'd you guys last week, or 2 weeks ago now, but...
Yeah, that's why I don't start at level 1, because like you have like 8 HP.
Yeah.
Some little could walk up, like roll a 20 and be like, you're just on the floor, and you're like,
Yeah.
what are you supposed to do about that?
But I guess to wrap back around to what you said, Joel, I start at level 2 basically because I want them to feel like they kind of get to know each other before they become somebody, before they become more than just, another person, and they kind of get to see that growth. It maybe, in my eyes, it might make for some better character development, and maybe like some better RP moments, because, for instance, when you guys first met, like, I'm trying to think of who the best example here. Probably Cress. Like, she is a very frail looking, for you especially, Nil, like the way you guys met. I won't give any Zero Session spoilers here, but the way you guys met, She was a very frail-looking woman with basically tattered clothes and a weapon, and what?
I'm fine.
Okay. But yeah, I guess that's my reasoning.
See, but I start at level 3 because then it becomes part of their backstory that they get to elaborate on.
That's a good
Ooh.
point. That's a good point.
There's the flip side, and
Right.
this is what I was gonna say regarding this topic. If I could run 6 sessions at level 1, I would. Nobody wants to
Right,
play that game.
but-
Nobody wants to play that game. I don't want to run that game as a DM, understanding the game mechanics, and nobody wants to play in that game. But I think that even level 2 for a wizard, because you have to choose your school
Mhm.
before,
Well, sure. There-
is a little like, I feel like that's kind of I guess good answer to Vader's question, right?
Yeah.
If we're gonna sum this up, the higher in levels you go, the more people have to build backstory for.
Yep.
And I find that backstory, while good, doesn't give the characters a reason of why I'm here with these people. Why am I a part of this group? Am I invested? Have I had too many near-death encounters?
Mhm.
The list goes on and on.
Yeah, you're right.
On and on.
And I kind of want to cut it off there because now we're diving more into to gameplay and stuff, and I want to try and touch on world building for this session, and we'll go to gameplay and stuff in a different episode. So
We'll be everywhere,
we'll-
Matt. It's fine.
yeah, we'll dive back into that more in depth when we do our episode on gameplay Vader. So if you have any other questions, feel free to think of them and send them to us on our Discord, or you can always just send them directly to Aiden, and he'll write them down and bring them to the session.
Sure.
We can't talk forever.
Yeah.
There's no way.
If you know me, you know I can talk for a long time.
But let's go ahead and circle back around to world building and kind of what we were talking about now. Joel, your original question was stuff about topography and how that affects how you create your world and where everything goes in your world. Okay, I guess we'll come back to it in a second. Pixelation says, on the topic of backstories, how do you encourage your players to come up with intricate backstories without being like, here's your homework? So I'll tell you exactly what I did for this this campaign. I felt like it highly motivated my players to come up with their backstories. I made a rule for our current campaign that we play and said, all of you can have either one semi-good magic item that will kind of expand with your character as you level up, or you can start at level 1 with a free feat. But the trade-off for that is you need to give me something to work with. I need to have a backstory to work with, something to really build on into the world. And all of my players gave me amazing work. I mean, Aiden gave me like a 7-page paper that I had to read through and then figure out how I was going to work everything in. But whatever.
What are we talking about? It's fine.
But they all did amazing work on their backstories, and I felt like that really motivated them. The only trade-off that I did for that pixelation is I told them, I was like, if you take a free feat at level 1, you can't take one at level 4. You got to take your stat increase. So I mean, they get a free stat increase out of it, and they get their feat at level 1 that they would have had to wait till level 4 for. So I felt like that was a pretty good trade-off, but it also gave them a pretty good motivation for really diving in and giving me a good backstory to work with. You guys have anything you want to input?
Joel, Alex, you got something?
I mean, I think that's the best way to incentivize people to write an extensive backstory. I mean, and it's not game breaking in any way, really. And I like the idea of giving free feats to players just in general from the DMing perspective sometimes, because it allows them to customize
Diversify.
in the rule
Yeah.
without having to spend one of their few ability score increases to do it,
Mm-hmm.
or not being able to do it until level 16.
Right.
I was very lucky to have the group of players that I do who are, I hope, unless I've read the room wrong, as invested in me about telling a meaningful, good story. And doing each of the characters is both that they inhabit, but also their party members who they come to know, justice.
Sure.
I also, this is not really a question that I think I can answer as a DM. I can answer my side, but I don't feel like the investment is there unless you hear from them, which is obviously the big challenge that I keep coming back to. I gave them a world dossier that explained It was like two and a half pages. I didn't want to make it too long, but it explained the world and the intrigues within, and then kind of said, "Go loose, create a small faucet of this world, whatever you want." And I gave them creative freedom to then create, whether it be a town, the people in it. I had one character who they were like, "Well, where would I be from?" And I told them, and they created every NPC in that town. And you know what? I was okay with that because what they created, they understood my vision for the world, so they didn't like break cohesion by any means. But it also makes sense, given the person that they are, where they're from, that they would know almost everybody from this town, anybody worth knowing. No offense to, I guess, serfs. Yeah, no, giving feats out is a good incentive. I gave everyone what I gave maybe was like a little bit of my world that everyone can then one day turn around and present to their friends.
Sure.
And it's gonna be kind of this interesting thing, we haven't done it yet, where we go to someone's backstory town.
Sure.
And I am not DMing for the next 30 minutes or more, except for telling you, yeah, that that person lives, and then they go and see that person.
I think a good offset for your question here, Pixelation, is how do you encourage people to come up with intricate backstories? Some people just don't like being that creative, and maybe they would rather see what you come up with if they just give you, the bare bones. For instance, I won't reveal anything, but our player, my brother Josh, in our campaign, told me what he wanted, and I gave him some bullet points, and I was like, okay, what do you want out of this list? And he told me, and I was like, okay, so he gave me the bare bones, and then I ran with it, and I think he's going to be pleasantly surprised when we start getting in his backstory with how intricate and woven into the world it is, because he has no idea what's coming because he didn't dive too much into it. So on the offset, when people don't give you a lot to work with, that also gives you more to work with in a sense, because you can kind of take it and weave it the way you want it to turn out with what they gave you.
Yeah, I guess maybe touch on that real quick. The character who wrote every NPC in their starting town, that I was like, well, this is gold. I mean, who says these NPCs have to stay here? They could filter across the world given their ambitions. So it's kind of that thing where, and I kind of took that, extrapolated a little bit more in a zero session to show that, like, these people aren't static. Neither are you. You're an adventurer. This is why you struck out. So getting that basis from each of your players lets you put these little if we're talking about world building on this stream, sorry, gives you those little seeds that you can then plant amongst your world to give more depth. And as soon as somebody realizes, whoa, that's one of my backstory characters, and he's in this town, or she's in this town, or they're in this town, that gives you immediate investment from at least one out of X of your players.
Okay.
And I think that's worth it.
Yeah.
Do you guys have anything else you want to touch on with world building? Aiden, Alex, you guys got anything?
I think we touched on
What's that?
I got a lot of stuff.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
I'll tell you anything that's wanted.
I got a lot of dumb stuff I can share. I don't know if anyone wants to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's one thing that I'll touch on, and we talked about this a little bit in our last episode, is, and it kind of circles back around to that writer's block thing. Another method for me, for whenever I'm trying to get over writer's block, is I will literally just put everything down and go for a drive. Go get food, go to the gas station, get a drink, and then as I'm driving around, I'm looking at signs, and this is gonna sound really stupid, but there are a lot of street names out there that are very awkward and weird, and you ride by and you see that and you're like, no, that's a really weird name. What the hell? How could I work that in? And maybe it'll give you, a little spark of inspiration, because there are some very weird things out there that you just don't pay attention to on the daily basis whenever you're out in the world.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but we all mentioned it earlier. But one of my favorite tools that I've ever had was a quick notation linking to a Google Doc on my phone that is on my phone's homepage. Because when I have a thought, I better write that stuff down, or it's gone in 5 minutes or less.
Yep.
And kind of doing that is huge when it comes to making sure you don't miss anything crazy. Because sometimes you have these really great ideas, and if you're not going to implement them now, you'll implement them 6 months from now or more. This is also while I'm talking. Chad, if you got any world building questions, now is the time because it sounds like Matt's trying to wrap this up. I don't understand why he would be trying to do that. I don't know why he'd be trying to do that, but it sounds like he's trying to wrap it up.
I'm trying to wrap it up because I want to try and keep these episodes between like an hour and a half long. Last one's ran 2 hours, but I do want to keep these somewhat on a time limit because I don't want them to go up and then someone they think they heard something here that they want to go back and rehear or know, and then they have to click through like a 2-hour video trying to find where they heard it.
Okay, we're pushing to the next hour mark. It's fine. It's fine, Matt.
We'll go a little bit longer and see what comes up, but I do want to try and keep these at a static time length per video just to keep them uniform. So yeah, guys,
There's no
if you have
rules,
any,
Matt. No rules.
have you used movies or books? Definitely. I 100% have used movies and books for world building. Video games and TV shows even more.
Yeah,
I can't.
both.
Nothing.
All in large numbers.
Nothing comes to mind right off the top of my head for where I drew inspirations from, except for a city in mind. So as you guys know, Margaret does a lot of our drawings and stuff for us, and there is a city that you guys will see eventually, and she drew it for me to put in the map, and I literally described it to her. I was like, think Minas Tirith, but it's not on a mountainside. I was like, so it's just that multi-tiered city with like these really tall towers, and it's just massive. And she took it and like drew it for me, and it turned out exactly how I thought it would, and it looks amazing. But
part of that, you looked at me and went, "What's Minas Tirith?"
yeah.
Oh no.
Oh,
It looks-
it
Yep.
turned out really good, and I'm happy with it. And you guys will see it eventually on the map whenever if they ever go that way. You know, I don't know what you guys are gonna do.
I'll find it.
You'll find it. Yeah.
I'm sure you have a plan. It's fine. It's fine.
I have some ideas, but you know, you guys are your own people. You decide what you do. And last session, you guys decided to almost die.
Well, that was probably the best thing you did for Kelrick in terms of party cohesion.
Yeah.
So, but we talked about that last DM
We did, we
roundtable,
did.
and we talked about that at the end of the session as well.
Yep.
In character.
So the circle back, Vader. Yes, the answer is yes. Definitely
Oh.
use movies and books, especially
Movies, books, video games.
especially when I'm
dozens of
having
them.
trouble coming up with something for what or coming up with ways I want to expand an idea. I'll find something that I think similar to it and go and sit down and
Yeah.
read it or watch it.
And subconsciously, every story I've ever read, somewhere, a little elements like, because that's how humans work.
Right.
And everything's been used. It's fine. I think I said that near the top of the session. It's like nothing's original. This ain't either.
Arm right, and his guardians are killed.
What's that, Joel?
he's in one. I
Okay.
said, yeah, I said like everything's inspired from something, movie, book. Like it turned out, it was like picture this, right? An orphan. But hold up, he grows up on a farm, right, with his guardians that are probably some form of parental figures. They die. And he's
Yeah,
not
okay.
die, and he goes off and joins some sort of militia force. It's never been done before.
That's pretty unique, I gotta say.
It is.
Oh. For some reason, I thought you were going
No.
Smallville reference there for Superman.
He's talking about Joseph Campbell's hero's journey.
Oh,
and that
I mean-
story has been told
Like,
dozens and
Yeah.
dozens, hundreds of times.
Oh.
But it's a good story to tell. That's why do you keep digesting those stories? Because it's a good story.
Yeah.
The reluctant hero.
Yep.
That's what a lot of D&D characters should be. Not all. I don't want to say all.
Yeah.
I don't want to control somebody's D&D experience.
I just want to sing and drink.
We missed you singing last time. There was no one there to keep us entertained. You were
I'm
you were
sorry.
too busy
I said
worshiping the
I
porcelain
would.
god.
Would have still been there.
I offered to give him my notebook of songs.
I know. He told me that, and he's like, I was prepared to sing, and I was like, man, I'm not gonna have two different people running. I'm not gonna have 4 characters being ran by 2 people.
I would have ran.
So you guys definitely threw my improv through the ringer there, and but it turned out really good, and I think it's gonna be really good for the story wise, anyways. So it worked out. I just think your party members might be a little in character, a little upset with you because you guys took the only 2 magic weapons for a fight that needed magic weapons.
Yeah, that would have been useful.
uh,
Which reminds me, I have a question about that for you later. That's probably not on the stream. I've talked to Alex a bit about it.
oh, I mean, you can shoot now if you want.
All right, so picture this, right? I get 2 of them, and I dip into Echo Knight.
Okay.
I know where this is going.
So what
So
do you
it's
want?
like-
What are you wanting to do?
So does my Echo would technically have them too. If he throws one, can I teleport to it?
I would say.
I hate this. I hate this.
Well, there's a 30-foot range on it, so it depends on how far away he is. I'll leave it at that.
They can only be so far
I
away
think
from
the
you.
Echo Knight also has 30-foot range.
But the dagger, like you throw it, it can only be 30 feet from you. So he would basically, if he's 30 feet away from you, he would have to throw it back at you if you to teleport to it. Because if he throws it the opposite way, it's gonna be too far away.
What if the Echo Knight's 30 feet away, but so is the target?
Triangles.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. You're gonna have to find a second one. You're gonna have to find a second one in the first place.
He throws it, and he wants the Echo to teleport.
And then the Echo throws it on his turn.
They start juggling them back and forth between each other.
And then they run out of die.
It's
What part of any of this is world building? I know
It's-
we've strayed from the
I know.
conversation
I know.
highly.
I know. It's
I
fine.
said it was for later.
It's fine.
What part of any of this? Is world
We're
So it
we're
was-
talking about world building items.
okay.
It's
You
true.
want to talk magic items? I'll talk magic items.
Yeah, to be fair, we were
They
talking.
have a basis in my world, actually. There's like actually a lot for me to talk about there if you want.
Yeah, because we talked
I'll
about an
pull
item
this open. It's fine.
to me, and I was like, I really wish I had one of these. That would work really good with a College of Swords bard.
What's that?
And then
And
that,
like 2 days later,
and
it
then
showed
that, like
up.
2 days later, that enemy had it. And I remember looking at Alex, being like, "I will die getting this."
I remember whenever I told as soon as I said the guy threw the dagger and teleported, you were like, "I need that dagger."
Yeah.
And then your focus in combat literally stopped whatever you were doing, and you're like, "I need that. I'm going for it."
Yes.
I guess my favorite thing about D&D. Can we kind of branch a bit? Because we're already off topic, right?
Yeah, we'll branch a little bit. It's fine.
What's your favorite thing about running D&D for your friends? Top tier. One answer. One.
Top tier one answer. For me, seeing their reactions for the shit I throw at them, like I mean, for me, because you guys know I have my 3D printer. When I drop shit on the table that you guys have never seen before, your guys' reactions and how you react to the shit like that, it's fucking my favorite thing.
I immediately just try like figuring out where is it scale of hit points, and then
Speaking of that, while you guys are talking, I'll still be able to hear you. I'm gonna run and get a mini I just printed because I want to show it off.
great.
I can still hear you
Look at
guys,
this
and
guy.
stream should still be able to hear me, but
Look at this guy.
I don't know what my favorite. What would
I don't know. I mean, this is gonna sound way too wholesome, but I just like doing something that my friends have fun with. Like,
That's a
I
fair answer.
inherently
oh shucks.
like helping people. I guess. Again, don't mistake this for me being a good person because I'm not.
He's not.
But
Yikes.
but I do enjoy being able to just make my friends smile, and we can forget about stuff for 2 to 10 hours.
Well, hell, how the fuck do I forget about 2 to 10? Yeah, no, I caught that. Hang on. Well, shucks, how do I follow that up? I feel like an asshole. Jeez.
That's why I said don't think of me as a good guy.
No, I mean, I'm not a good guy either, let's be honest.
alright, I'm back.
I
I think maybe just giving each of my players somewhere to explore themselves within.
I mean, that's a big part for me as a
I've had a lot of conversations with my players outside of the game as I continue to try to gather feedback. It's an endless cycle of me trying to like pester them basically for feedback, but making sure that like my mainline questions are how do you think the game's going? What are the things you want to achieve for character's name here? And are there any specific notes you want to hit? And I've played, most of the players in my game have played D&D enough to the point where they are at the point where they want to explore things that are not themselves. And I think that is the power of the game that I'm running while you're showing this crazy chain demon lord. Just put that down. Dude, if you drop that, that's going to shatter in a million pieces.
I've already dropped it. It doesn't.
Insert from Toy Story. That's copyright.
That
literally looks like a fucking morphed transformer.
it is a fucking war golem with flails for arms.
Fuck
That would be
that.
my
Don't worry,
guess.
I have his prototype. A knight with a chainsaw.
I mean,
That's just it's just idiotic. I don't
Yeah, it's gonna be really idiotic when he runs you through, isn't it?
Break or spin up.
No, Kelrick's gonna be in the back with Harbinger's Call, like gatting away. And then running.
Oh.
Yeah,
Best he can, anyway.
me too.
I try not to be around people wildly waving chainsaws, so
What about the one that's spinning like a top with flails?
that's even worse.
Okay. Alright. World
Alright.
building. World
Yeah.
building.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Mini
World
building is
building.
mini building is like world building.
In a way. In a way.
Uh
I actually have something real quick. And maybe this I don't wanna never mind, I won't. But this is something that I think is kind of important. How do you guys handle villains? Do we do like hero villains who lead top down? Do we do hero villains who lead amongst? Like they push with and you'll encounter them and time again? How do we handle villains? I would like just a general villain discussion. Because I think villains are part of world building. If they're not, well,
They are.
shit.
I like building to mine. I don't. You'll encounter him maybe once or twice, but you won't necessarily have an encounter with them. And more of what you'll hear is like hearsay and lore about them. You're building this image in your mind, and
Speaking of the chair breaking,
by the time you get there, you have this image built in your head that I can sort of work around. But until then, basically, it's you see a villain, chances are they're dying that session. Maybe the next session, something like that. Like that encounter it's a story that's getting wrapped up.
For me, so I have my BBEG, my big bad evil guy, that is supposed to be my, he's supposed to be my Zariel, my last guy of the campaign, the last guy you guys ever fight. And for me, you guys won't see him until probably halfway through the game, and when you see him, you won't know it's him. I like to build around, world build around my big bad evil guys, my big bads, as at least for me, someone who's smart, someone who's cunning, and he's gonna be not gonna be seen for a mile away. What?
I was like, it's this guy, he's the villain, and then you started talking about cunning. I was like, oh no.
So that's my personal thoughts on world building around them. Aiden, did you have anything on that? Otherwise, I'm gonna touch on what Pixelation just asked.
I do. I think I agree with a bit of your points. Villains for me are, and I can't say too much because I know I have players watching.
Yeah, me too.
There is a power of recurring villains. There is a power in villains who, quite simply, against all odds, do not die. They come back, and you wonder why, and then you eventually solve the mystery of why, just before vanquishing them. That is a typical storytelling approach. There is also the villains, like the one I just ran, where they are mentioned only in name, only in text. You see them, you don't see them. You see them mentioned. That's what Joel talked about. You kind of build. Again, I did a small version of it, but you kind of build this enigma around a villain, and all of a sudden it's revealed. And the unfortunate part is when I'm running a game like this over remote, I don't have much time to watch. Just like we're talking about here, I don't have much time to watch your guys' facial reactions. I can't see. There's too many cameras to look at, too many spaces to look at. But at a table, you get the benefit of maybe reading the room and feeling the tension within it.
Oh my god. Sorry, I
So-
wasn't laughing at you. Joel made a face.
No, it's fine. The villains that you run in your game are the only reason why your adventurers are there.
Right.
I mean, again, run a mercenary game if you want to, but your villains should be diametrically opposed with your heroes. Your heroes who are just now burgeoning and growing into the people that they are. The 4th level, 5th level, whatever you started at, and wherever they grow to, it gets bigger and bigger. It crescendos until the BBEG. I will be honest, I have no idea what the freaking hell a BBEG of Bally Rousseau is going to be. I don't know. But I know when it's done, and I know when it's over, we're going to have enough elements to sink in right that BBEG right in there. And maybe it might be a homebrew at the end of the day.
Mhm.
But of course, as my homebrews are, there's going to be an amalgamation of stat blocks. I would never create
Hey.
my own monster.
If you homebrew it, I got a mini for it.
Yeah, we'll talk. But I would never try to. I don't have my BBEG planned because I don't want my BBEG to be planned. That would orchestrate how the whole campaign goes, and I think that undermines what my players are capable of doing and how they're capable of subverting the enemy. I've had a couple of ideas. Yes, I have ideas on paper. But if they do something masterful at 9th level, or they do something masterful at 14th level and undermine the enemy at the core, because it's all connected, bad people always stick together, good people always stick together, I suppose.
Sure.
I don't want to be shoehorned into this is the bad guy, period. That's not. It doesn't give the same weight. It doesn't give player agency to my players, if that makes any sense.
I mean, yeah, obviously we want to just try to have the world running in the background as much as we can.
Yeah, that's a constant thing.
Players, affect what they're in right now, and their decisions actually affect things. But not everyone is able to do that. Like, that's, of course, you want to be able to, but it's also perfectly acceptable to say, here's where I want to start, here's where I want to end. There's a bunch of points in the middle, and
Yeah,
you
I got
just
the.
bounce around.
I got
and you
that.
end up here.
I got that.
I would
is
say
what
for
I'm at.
me,
Fine.
when I built my world, I didn't have a place where I wanted you guys to start. I didn't have a place where I wanted you guys to end. I more or less had what's going on, and then there's everything in between that you guys could do. So I guess for me, because I kind of do mine a little different than you, Aiden. I already have my my big bad plotted out and thought of, and what I want him to do. And you're right. If you guys do something that completely undermines him, I feel like, from my standpoint, and this is just my personal opinion, I should have built him smart enough to know that to figure out something he can do maybe on the fly, or maybe it's something I need to do on the fly for him to figure out, okay, how's he gonna change this to rectify it to get his plan back on track.
Maybe I misspoke. I know what the BBEG is. I don't know who he is. I know what the bad guys are working towards.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? They're working towards a thematic element that I want to hit.
Right.
But I don't have a specific monster or creature in mind.
Gotcha.
Because I'm also running kind of a loose campaign. I'm not sure if they're going to be encountering this monster at level 14, if the campaign goes really quick. If they actually get to where I want them to be, which is level 20, I want them to be the heroes of the realm, legends in living form. I could be wrong. I don't know how this is going to work out. So I'm going to play it by ear, but I know the general theme of the evilness that evil works towards, as it always does.
You had something
Anyway.
to touch on, Joel?
Do you guys, so like for instance, like the Curse of Strahd module, like that that villain, he has goals that the DM is manipulating in the background the whole time, and it's
Right.
evolving, changing as the time goes on, regardless of what the players do almost.
Right.
Do you ever have your villains do that in the background, or are they?
That's kind of what I was trying to get at.
That's a great question.
I have my guy, my big bad already planned out. I know who he is. You guys have no idea who he is. And he has his goals that are going on in the world around you guys. And I might throw tidbits around that are completely meaningless now, but when you guys finally find him and find out what his goals are, you go back and you look at like previous episodes, you're like, Oh,
Yeah,
so
there's the realization, right?
yeah, so the answer is yes. I have my guys' goals currently happening, and they will continue to happen throughout the campaign. It's behind the curtains. It's something you guys will never see.
I wanna try to do justice to the chat. Can we talk about the chat question real quick?
Yeah, sorry, I got off
I
topic.
don't want
told-
to put it off.
No, I
don't
told
wanna put it off.
Pixelation we would circle back around to it, so that's
Right,
that's my
right.
fault.
It's all
So
good.
it said, sorry if I missed it, but if you haven't already, can you talk about the visual side of world building, best resources for map making, whether by hand drawing or digitally? So I know of a few sources for the different people use for world building, and the first one that comes to mind, which I don't use, but I do know a lot of people that do use it, and there's nothing wrong with it, is the dice method. You pick up like 6d6. You throw them on a piece of paper, and you trace around them, and that's your continent. And then you just start building from there. And then there's like different tables you can find all over the internet for like roll for climate, and you just start like figuring out different sections of your world that way. For me, building the visual side of my world was sitting down in Wonderdraft, which Wonderdraft is my personal favorite for best resources for map making, and I drew out my map. And then I was like, okay, how do I want this map to look visually with all its different biomes and different things that I want to accomplish? And I started picking, choosing where I wanted to put things, and kind of like trying to build the visual of like, okay, here's a forest. Now there's a Stonehenge in this forest to kind of symbolize there's a druidic circle here. And along that, there's this massive river that goes down through the middle of it and leads down into this valley and feeds into this giant lake. Okay, what's that lake there for? And maybe there's something at the bottom of that lake. Different things like that for that I kind of Wonderdraft makes it very easy to pick these things where you can add minute details to your map that someone might not notice, but someone who has a keen eye and pays attention to things will notice. I'll let you guys take it from here.
I mean, Alex, Joel, anything?
When I created my worlds, it was like 2nd and 3rd edition in Pathfinder, and I used notebook paper.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, I know.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't use any sort of software for it.
No, I was lucky because when I created my world, something like, and you've heard it said before, chat, Wonderdraft exists. It is, I know there's Incarnate out there. I know that there's a ton of other softwares.
Campaign
I know there's
Cartographer.
Campaign Cartographer, which is what I was originally going to use, which is far harder to use, as far as I understand.
Yes,
But hey,
it is.
no actual endorsements are being handed out here. You create your world how you want, map or no, doesn't matter. Don't ask me. I'm telling you how I did it, and I'm gonna give you my advice on how I did it. Wonderdraft is quite simply enough for someone like me. It is good. It is good, make no doubt, but it is enough.
It's also user friendly.
It is extremely user friendly in terms of importing new assets and everything else. It allowed me for the first time to think about all the things I talked about at the start of the stream: tectonic plates, mountains, how rivers flow. Because once I started drawing it out, I realized if I do this wrong, it's just going to look like a crappy picture of somewhere in the middle of nothing that is not worth doing anything with. But you don't have to start with a map. And so, like, visually, so the original question is, can you talk about the visual side of world building? Visual side of world building is very important. Wonderdraft gave me not many things, and I'll elaborate on some of them now. Wonderdraft did not, because of the way that I built Wonderdraft's map to look like a parchment map that somebody would have done. So there is no color on it. You can do it in Wonderdraft. My experience, don't recommend it. You can go out there and draw your own assets and do your own map. I think Matt is getting some assets from Margaret.
Or you have an awesome friend draw assets for you.
Or you have an awesome friend draw assets for you.
Shout out to Margaret, you're awesome.
But my map has no coloring because it's meant to be on parchment. It's meant to be what the cartographer drew. but also it lacks detail. So don't prescribe yourself to that map necessarily. Use it as a guide. Reading through best hand drawing digitally.
One thing
If you,
I
if
wanted
you can
to,
draw, if you can hand draw it, go ahead.
yeah, one thing that was what I was gonna ask you, Joel. When you hand drew your maps, did you have a method for doing it, or did you just sit down and start drawing lines?
Yes, I actually did have a method for doing it. So I used sort of a dice method like you did.
Yeah.
Except I used ice cubes.
Okay.
Yeah, that ice at the time, and it was the one thing we had in the apartment.
Hey,
I-
whatever works.
I'm telling you how I drew my first world.
That's incredible.
That's
Drew
impressive.
ice cubes out on my
That
friend's
is.
We're
and then,
gonna
like, paper next to it and was like, uh-huh.
we're gonna
Yeah.
coin the ice cube method for this channel.
And then like the bigger the ice cube, the higher the elevation.
Hey, that's,
Oh,
Ooh.
wow.
There's a method to it. It wasn't like I just grabbed the first random thing. Otherwise, I would have used like pennies or I didn't have enough money as a college student. That's not true.
All right, if you didn't have like 6 pennies, you had different problems.
Oh, he had no pennies. He had no pennies at this point.
Why we were playing D&D.
He was out. That's why we're playing D&D.
Yes. And I didn't even advise.
Oh my god.
Right.
Yep,
The other
that's it.
guy agrees with you.
Yeah.
So.
So I used that, and it created my elevation. And it was really cool because I remember the first one. You know, if you look at 8 out of 10 fantasy maps,
Mhm.
up here you have your snowy mountains. Down here and probably over here you have a desert.
Yep.
And over here is probably like a prairie, and it's like this big. But it eliminated that stereotypical problem because I had like a snowy mountain like way the hell down here, and like my desert was like up here, and I'm like, well, hold on a second, that's not how fantasy maps work. And then I was like, oh
Thank
yeah,
you.
it doesn't matter.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's right.
Thank you.
It was really nice
Thank
when
you.
I created my first one because I didn't have any rules or boundaries. So
That's
So this is a good lead-in. I think really. I don't want to talk about my world too much, but the top part of my world is frigid. The bottom part is frigid. But the thing is, when you look at it from like a scale in miles point, which I have a scale that determines how many miles things are, and I try to stick to it when it comes to travel, but it's kind of loosey goosey. Whatever. Whatever.
Yeah.
Who cares? The world makes no goddamn sense. It makes no sense. There's so much more like if you extrapolate the idea of like a similar Earth like globe, which I never claimed Balarosoa to be, but if you extrapolate that idea, this much of the continent being cold doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But you know what I like? I like Arctic environments, and I like
Well,
I like the complexity it can bring to anything else.
but that's like the thing is, who says you can't have like multiple frigid regions
Right.
and other things? You're like,
That's,
bitch,
The environment is a challenge. The environment can be another layer of challenge.
That's one thing that of course the stream hasn't seen it yet, but on my map when I present it to you guys, and you guys can't tell because it's not in color, but you do know from what I've told you, there is a whole ice zone smack dab in the middle of the fucking map. Why? There's this whole
Why not?
frigid area in the center of the fucking map, because I wanted it there. That's why.
Nah,
That's what it comes down to, right?
only answer you need.
Yeah.
Building a world. So put what you want in it. Doesn't have to be technically good or scientifically sound. Like
Yeah, exactly.
whatever. Have
Well,
fun.
also the basis of you're on a different planet. You're not on Earth.
Exactly. Yeah.
Your assumptions are not valid.
Well, anything else, guys?
Sheesh. Give me 3 minutes. I'll think of something else, man. I'm telling you.
I got a few things I want to touch on here at the end. So I want to do a little some stream announcements here, guys. First
Oh.
off and foremost, Joel, you had a couple
Oh.
things there. You can go ahead and hold those up now. You were holding them up there a second.
Oh, all
Yeah.
the birds. Alex has me.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead and
Yeah.
you want to talk a little bit about where those come from?
These come from our sponsor, Terra Tiger Studio. The person that does our map and our cool mug and everything, pretty much.
Mhm.
Alex just keeps
She's-
picking up all the different stickers.
Stop, Alex. What the fuck?
I work in, so
This is-
yes.
We're currently set up in her office because it was the only place to really find some
That's okay.
scared people. So
Makes sense.
it's literally everything in here.
Yeah.
This is the cool one that's based off the mug. That's the
Yeah.
little D20.
It is. Well, hang on. I'll be right back.
Okay, while he's doing that, our second sponsor, since I showed a few of them tonight, is of course Archvillain Games, the guys who provide me with these STL files and I 3D print all of these amazing minis that they sculpt. They do some amazing work, guys. You can get links to both of Archvillain Games and Terra Tiger Studios in the About section of our Twitch page, and you can find them linked in all of our YouTube videos. So definitely check them out when you get a chance.
This is a bird in a dinosaur costume. I don't care what you do. This shit is cute.
that is pretty awesome. You got it?
Okay, and like 4 more
Oh.
that are over here. But
It was a run.
There we go.
Hey, you need that leopard gecko sticker?
There are
The
some
link is
amazing
in the
mugs.
bottom. Yeah,
Amazing
link
mugs.
is
The-
in the bottom, guys. Go check it out. Buy her stuff. She does amazing work.
Guys,
Yes.
this color does not look good on camera. I'm looking at it.
Yeah, the
I'm
camera
telling you,
camera does not do it justice.
does not do it justice. There is the color is incredible in person. It is. But hey, you know what? Forget about that. If you want a nice D&D mug that kind of represents that you like D&D and or a snake,
The snakes.
Snakes were made.
sure, knock yourself out. This, I'm telling you, the camera does not do the justice of this color. It is an absolute. I was kind of confused when I first got it because the color pops. Well, I'm colorblind, but the color pops in a way that I haven't seen. The contrast on this mug is colorblind friendly. Is that a thing we can say for Terra Tiger? What do I know?
They both stick to different shit. Actually, technically, this one would stick to the same
was gonna
shit.
say.
This one
Yeah, no, they're great. Hang on.
is safer.
hang on, don't move. I got more stuff.
I'm not moving.
Man,
This? Hey, there we go. I forgot I made that.
Nobody move.
No, I didn't.
Okay, I'm not moving. Well, I'm
Hey,
moving,
hey.
but
Don't move. I don't know why I'm doing this. Yeah, I got all sorts of stuff on the freaking water bottle that I use for Friday Night Dice as well. That cute little boy. What a cute little
sugar,
boy.
the sugar glider.
Oh, you like that little boy? Oh boy, he looks good. Yeah, what about that one? We're all about sponsors here apparently.
Forgot about the hot dog.
dude,
Nope, not that. Oh yeah, no, that's a 3. That's a 3 I got on there.
That's
Yeah.
true. Stuff bears and
This is what else am I doing? Who knows?
bears and dogs.
There's phoenixes. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
I don't know, it's crazy.
So yeah, guys, check her out, buy her stuff, support her. She's amazing, does really good work for us, and you guys can always catch her in chat during our sessions as she moderates for us. So the next thing I want to go ahead and touch on, guys, is some future content coming out that I'm about to blindside our group here because they don't know about this stuff. Yep, I linked it to him up there too, Joel. But so in the coming future, I have individually talked to all 3 of these people here about running one-shots on Friday Night Dice. Aiden is going to run one in his world, and
Yes.
Joel and Alex are both going to come up with a one-shot of their own amalgamation to run in the world you guys currently see us playing in. And my hope is you can see Aiden's here hopefully next month.
Oh.
And Alex and
Nervous
Joel, I'm about to
chuckle.
drop a bomb on you guys. Joel, I'd like you to run yours around Thanksgiving, and Alex, I'd like you to run yours around Christmas, and we'll do a little some holiday one shots here.
God.
My goodness.
What's that?
Can we go to the snow elf place? I want to go to the snow elf place.
Yeah, whatever you want. I told you I will provide you with whatever you want for your one shot. But I just wanted to go ahead and give a little announcement while we're live for some future content we're going to be doing.
Yeah. Matt and I have been talking a while about getting a crossover between Advantage from Flare and Friday Night Dice, and Well, some things got in the way, haven't they?
Still not sick.
Yeah. But we got to be smart.
Yeah, we do. I had to make sure all you guys stayed healthy.
Yeah,
Correct.
there's a story that if anyone from my campaign or someone who watches my campaign is watching, there's a story that I desperately want to tell, and I'm very happy to say that it's going to be told here.
Yeah.
And these players,
Yeah, that's right, we're
whoever
crossing the
shows up to
streams.
this one shot, we're crossing streams. Whoever shows up is going to be, well, I'll leave your imagination. How about that? I shouldn't be rude. I shouldn't tease you like that.
It's and I didn't mean to blindside you guys. It came to my mind right now. We're making announcements here at the end. But
Yeah, no, it's fine.
that is
This is more notice than I've gotten during my work week. So
this is the timeline for what I want, guys. So towards the end of August, we'll see a crossover between Advantage from Flare and Friday Night Dice, with Aiden running a one shot for as many of the people from our group together as we can.
Or externals.
Yeah,
that I
we might have
invite.
externals as well, and so maybe some guests. So keep being tuned. Stay at our Discord and stuff for announcements on that. But then when Thanksgiving time starts rolling around, people we're on break. Whatever our closest session to that is, or maybe we'll have a special session during a week when people can a day when everyone can get together. I would like Jill to run a one shot somewhere in Tilstaria, wherever he decides he wants to go, and I'll give him whatever information he needs for that to come up with whatever he needs. And then Alex, and no pressure here, you don't have to make it Christmas themed, but I'm gonna have you run one around Christmas time, a one shot. What was that?
Don't worry, I got this.
Okay, so and then I'm gonna have Alex run a one shot for you guys also in Tilstaria, unless he wants to run it in a different setting. And I'll give him
We'll
whatever he
figure it
needs. And then we'll run another one around Christmas time. So
I cannot freaking wait for the Valor Solo one shot so that I can show you guys. See, this is what world building DMs live for. The morsels and opportunity to tell a story that gives more levity to everything.
Yeah, it's definitely fun.
This is what I live for.
And from a world building standpoint, for me, is getting to share with you guys maybe a little more in depth of the world building that I put into these different areas, so you can come up with your own stuff to add to that area, and then our world building kind of compounds and turns in. It goes from becoming my world to our world. The world that we built together as a show. That is all I have for tonight, guys. Don't think we have any much else.
There's not one more world building thing we want to talk about. Are we sure?
No, I think that's about all we got for tonight.
Let's talk about NPCs. It's fine.
I don't want to hold everyone up all night. Stay
Hold
tuned next time, guys. If you guys have a certain topic you want us to talk about, tweet at us, get in our Discord, send us messages, go on our YouTube, leave comments. If you have topics you want us to talk about during these DM discussions, these DM roundtables we do, go on there and comment about them, and we will make an episode for it. Just let us know what you want to see. Besides that, I got nothing else. When is the next Friday Night Dice stream? It will be the 31st, the end of this month.
Yeah, it will be. Well, hopefully, all things considered.
Yeah, I will be 3 weeks of quarantine at that point, so all clear by that point. That'll be the next time we do a Friday Night Dice stream. Hey, Moldy Colt, thanks for the gifted sub. Appreciate that.
What a guy. Tier 2. Wow.
Did he do tier 2 again?
He did.
Wow,
They do.
tier 2,
Do
another
tier
tier
again.
2 sub. That's huge.
Nothing but thankful.
Yeah, I can't be
Every
thankful
dollar
enough.
goes straight back into the stream quality eventually.
But
Don't even
anyways,
afford to
guys, you
cover.
got anything else you want to touch on before we sign off for the night?
I do real quick. Our Discord, by the way, I'm not trying to plug our Discord. I'm trying to plug a way to talk to me or anyone else that you would like to talk to on Friday Night Dice's cast. Our Discord, while you should join it, is also a great opportunity for you, and yes, I mean you, to ask a question of a player or a character, and we will answer any non-spoiler questions. I know that this is kind of like a big cloud ask, but this is the opportunity where you can ask a question where you may have done in chat before or want to do in chat, but you know we don't respond. We can respond on Discord. That's where it is.
True.
Also on Discord, you'll get notifications when we go live like this. So freaking join it.
Alex,
That's it.
Joel,
That's
you
all I
guys got
got.
anything you want to touch on before we sign off?
No.
Okay. Alrighty, guys. I
Okay.
think that is all for tonight. So, good night. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate all of you. Huge shout out to Moldy Colt and these Fists for the gifted subs tonight. See ya.
Good night, boys.